Okay, it's 3 o'clock. Do we have a quorum already?
Yes.
Why don't we start? So, I'm going to call to order the implementation board meeting of the Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency. The time is 3:01. So we'll have a roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Chair Lazat. Board members Rocha.
Here.
Raval.
Here.
Esparza. Tucker.
Here.
Wasserman.
Here.
Constantine.
Present.
Ho. Here. Tovar.
Okay, we have a quorum. All right, next on the item is a report from the chairs. I'm implementation chair board. I don't have any report. Is Walt Glenn's here, the chair of the Public Advisory Commission? I only see, no Walt. Okay, public comments, items not on the agenda. Do we have any cards for public comment?
No, ma'am.
All right, then I won't read the public comment portion of this. We have a consent calendar, items 1 through 4. Can I have a motion?
So moved to approve 1 through 4?
We have a motion and a second to approve. I just wanted to point out that that includes the reappointment of Jan Hintermeister, Julie Hutchinson, Kyle Wolf, and Rachel Kesh to 4-year terms on the Public Advisory Committee. Thank you to them for reapplying. Are any of them here wishing to make a comment? None? Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda item, the consent item. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Item number 5 of the regular business is a resolution authorizing the acquisition of the Pund and Peck properties. Recommended action is to adopt. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, got a short
Mr. Sullivan.
presentation on items 5 and 6.
Okay. You can do them both while you're standing up there, and then we'll take individual votes.
Okay.
How did I know he had slides like that?
All right, thank you. This is joint presentation for items 5 and 6. The Pun Pecks, say that 5 times fast. And Davison Trust acquisitions. So land acquisition specifics, we're talking about 436.3 total acres to be protected. Total cost for both acquisitions would be $2,877,000. To date, we have secured $2,182,000 in outside funding for these land acquisitions. That represents the remainder of the money that the Valley Water gave us, $1.5 million for the Davison, and Post and the Habitat Agency are splitting the cost for the Pun Peck acquisition. Close of escrow for both acquisitions expected by the end of the year. So these are some of the R18 covered species. The ones that will benefit from this acquisition are the bay checker spot butterfly, tiger salamander, the red-legged frog, most likely the pond turtle, and some of the plants, the ceanothus, the dudleya, the lucingia, and most beautiful jewel flower, which in the case of the plants, we know they occur on the Davison property. So Pun Peck acquisition overview. So this is located in the southwest portion of the county between Morgan Hill and Gilroy off of Uvis Road. As I stated, Post is providing half of the funding, $682,000. County Parks may provide funding at a later date. Title would be transferred to County Parks ultimately. 292.1 acres of the property, of the 347.4 is oak woodland habitat. Important habitat for covered amphibians and wildlife connectivity. It's also important regional trail linkage if surrounding park properties can be acquired. So here's a map showing, it's also called, the Pun property is also called Uvis South. The Peck is the smaller of the two, 35 and I think 0.7 acres. You can see its relationship between Mount Madonna to the south and the Uvis Reservoir properties to the north. We're also in discussions, Post is taking the lead with some of the surrounding landowners about acquiring more of the property, the surrounding lands. This is a map of the two parcels themselves, or I should say the holdings. I'm pretty sure the Pun property is more than one APN. This is just some of the land cover, pretty colors on a map here. Predominantly the oak woodland is the green, and the pink is northern coastal scrub. There's also some streams on the property. Davidson Trust acquisition. It's wholly within the city limits of Morgan Hill. As I stated, Valley Water will be providing 1.5 million of the 1.513 million needed to purchase. 92.4 of the 93.9 acres is prime serpentine, home to the covered plants and the bay checker spot butterfly. Contains most of the rest of the Coyote Ceanothus currents, which extends into the soon-to-be protected Baird Ranch property. Shows you where the site is. It's on the north, I guess you'd say the northern edge of Morgan Hill. Here's a aerial of the property. And this map here shows you that it's almost 100% serpentine, and those kind of bluish gray polygons are the Coyote Ceanothus occurrence, which were required by the plan to acquire all known occurrences. And this particular acquisition will provide for the mitigation necessary for the Anderson Dam retrofit to move forward. You can see how it extends, so that area that extends to the northwest is the Baird Ranch that hopefully will close escrow on in December, which the board already approved the proceeding. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Any questions? Well, I just think this has been a wonderful couple of weeks for the environment. With these purchases, and the Water District is happy to help provide mitigation for our Anderson Dam, which is a public safety item that we're working vigorously to move forward, but also the saving of Coyote Valley with the purchase of the Sobrato and Brandenburg properties. So, like I said, this is just wonderful news. Thank you for your hard work. And
you're welcome.
The work of all of our partners in helping to secure these properties, as well as the Baird and hopefully the Tilden Ranch. So, do we have a motion for items 5 and 6?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion for items 5 and 6.
Yep.
Since they're both resolutions, do you need I think you need to take roll call on
Not for
resolutions?
resolutions.
No?
No.
Okay, that's different than us. So, all those in favor of items 5 and 6, all those opposed, any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. Item 7, authorize the executive officer to execute a professional service agreement with ICF Jones and Stokes. Recommended action, authorize the director to execute a 36-month, not to exceed $788,953 professional services agreement from January 1, 2020 through January 1, 2022 with Jones and Stokes to assist the Valley Habitat Plan implementation. We have a staff report?
No, just
Okay.
I'll answer any questions
Yeah.
if there are any.
So, well-written report, seems straightforward, keeping with individuals who have certainly done yeoman's work with us in the past. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to authorize the executive officer to execute a professional services agreement with ICF Jones and Stokes in the amount of $788,953 for professional services. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstention? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Item number 8. Woo! Moving quick.
done.
My God, I've been told I'm fast, but this is pretty good.
Valerie asked me how long, I said 35 minutes, I'm way off.
Well, Edmund, you now have the floor for 30 minutes.
I can talk very slowly on
You can read every word.
Very- I don't have my glasses here. so-
You're up, Evan.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So just wanting, as keeping with the necessity to keep you all up to date on the endowment investment, we've invested $1.485 million into the Silicon Valley Community Foundation Social Responsibility Fund. And the balance as of today, I checked, is $1,627,462. So we're still in the black, which is good. My 401k is performing better than this, though. So. But this is a little safer, less risky than probably some of the things I'm doing. But so,
Chair, if I may?
Sure.
When did we open that account?
we opened it up. I believe
roughly.
January was when we opened it up.
So
January.
we're up 10% for the year.
Yes.
Thank you.
yes.
That's good.
That's good. We'll take it.
Yeah, that's good.
You're right.
Yes, yes. But I thank you for bringing that up.
But hopefully it's in more conservative stuff.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
We have to treat it like it's a 90-year-old.
Treat it like it's not our money.
Same thing.
So just want to give you a little update on advocacy. I'm not, you all are up on a lot of things, but I'm not sure if you're up on Assemblymember Mullins' bill, AB 1298. It's entitled the Natural Resource Infrastructure Bond Act. It's to help with fire resiliency, natural resource stuff, climate change. So there's a lot in it. Garcia in the South, Assemblymember Garcia also has a bill. Assemblymember Mullen had a meeting on Monday that I attended, and given that he's out of San Francisco and we're up here, the California Conservation Coalition asked me to attend, which I did. And the bill has a lot of things that we like in it, and if it's consistent with the objectives of your respective organizations, I would encourage you to, through your lobbying efforts, to support this bill when it either this one or some variation of it comes forward. It's checking a lot of the boxes. These are the main points that we support in the bill relating to NCCPs and wildlife connectivity and funding for various state agencies that do grants for us and OSA and Mid-Penn and county parks. So this is a bill that we would support, and if it's something that your respective organizations are comfortable supporting, we would like you to vocalize that with the state delegation. Thank you.
I will pass it on, as I'm sure my colleagues will.
With the grant update, got some good news here. OSA got a $1 million priority conservation area grant, which would help towards just awarded yesterday, towards the Tilton Ranch acquisition, which we're taking the lead on, and they'll help fund the acquisition of it. Two California Department of Fish and Wildlife local assistant grants were awarded. We just got the notification on November 14th. One for fire management planning and monitoring post-fire of the Malik fire up on Coyote Ridge. And then $210,000 for the Pearl River restoration that we're working with Point Blue and OSA on. We just found out yesterday that we're also going to be the recipient of almost $400,000, $379,000 grant, another PCA Priority Conservation Area grant that is administered by MTC. It was submitted by Point Blue on our behalf. And so we're starting to line up the funding for the Pajaro riparian restoration, stream restoration project. And I attended a national HCP conference at the Conservation Training Center, the National Conservation Training Center, Department of Interior facility in West Virginia last week. And I found out, because Fish and Wildlife staff, U.S. Fish and Wildlife staff, gave a presentation on updating the Section 6 program. Normally, we would have been awarded the money by now, but things are different in Washington, and they're very different with this administration. So we did find out that which at least we got some feedback, that we will not know no earlier than March 2020 on whether, I don't expect us to get the full 10 million. They combined 18 and 19 grant cycles this year, which again is highly unusual. So 4 million would be a normal, figuring 2 million for each year. So I'm hoping we will get 5 of the 10 million that we applied for. But like I said, it's really hard to read this administration, and it's very fluid. With we will not awarded a $495,000 wildlife corridor and fish passage Prop 68 grant, unfortunately. This would have helped with some wildlife connectivity improvements along Highway 152. We were going to work in collaboration with Caltrans. I would like to get some feedback on this because I thought it was a good project, but there were a lot of applications. Wildlife connectivity is now becoming something. I found out at this conference that the federal government is bipartisan support for a federal program for wildlife connectivity. It seems to have a lot of support with the public and with both sides of the aisle. And so we will continue to apply for this type of funding, and there's talk of wildlife crossing over 101 in Coyote Valley, another reason why that area is important. We're also looking to potentially submit 1 or 2 grants for restoring habitat for western monarch, and one of the properties we may do it on is the OSA property along the Pajaro. And we'll continue to look into what's available through Prop 68 and also Prop 1. So land acquisition updates, there's one I forgot to put on here. We acquired a small holding on the Tulare Hill. It's the last remaining piece of public land. Well, PG&E has some land there, but it's surrounded by the land trust in county parks. So we acquired what they refer to as the wedge piece. It's all serpentine habitat. More than likely, we would eventually give that property over to county parks and put our conservation easement over it. And I should have put that on here. I apologize. It was within my approval authority up to $1 million to buy a piece of property without going to the board. And
Edmund, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
When you say, you've said a couple times, give it over to county parks,
Yes.
are you literally meaning give it over, or you?
Yes.
Give it over, but you
Yeah.
maintain an easement?
So the way we're set up, we're not supposed to own land long-term.
Okay.
So we would either give it to one of the co-permittees
Okay.
or potentially OSA to take ownership over the property, and we would co-manage it.
Okay.
And our conservation easement would be placed over it.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. There's some properties we may end up owning forever, not finding someone who will take it, but the way we're set up, sort of our enabling, our implementation agreement talks about not owning property when the permit sunsets. In this case, since it's right next to an existing county park, as well as an existing land trust of Santa Clara Valley, either one of them would be the natural organization to give the property to. And we've had some preliminary discussions with some of Don's staff over that. Yep.
Question.
Yes.
Veg piece, How big is the space?
35.4 acres, I believe.
And
And the good news is it's all serpentine, so it's another, we have to acquire
Continuity.
plant occurrences in advance of take. So the more occurrences we put in the bank, that means it won't trip up some private or public project that needs that take. Some of the plants, if you take an occurrence, we have to protect 2 occurrences in advance of take. So it's like a hamster wheel. So now to what I listed here, and I apologize for not including that, I wasn't thinking. So East Coyote Ridge, so this is the back half of the Coyote Ridge property. We're expecting to close escrow on that in spring of 2020. It's going to go to a lot of the funding is coming from the state and the feds to acquire this. It will be going to the Wildlife Conservation Board for their approval to release the state and federal funding on February 26th. Once that is done, then the due diligence period will begin, and we can close escrow with United Technology Corporation soon after that. We have a signed purchase and sale agreement already in place with them. Tilton Ranch, so this is the remainder of so we bought the more or less purchase. We haven't closed escrow yet on the Baird Ranch. This is the remainder of the property, 1,866. The family has to call a meeting because they're they have to call a board meeting to officially sign the purchase and sale agreement. That's supposed to happen next month. And we'll come back to the governing board to seek approval for that acquisition, either at the January meeting or the March meeting. So close of escrow on this also is expected in 2020. Clara Park, the county, in lieu of paying fees, they are going to enroll land both for conservation as well as direct mitigation for county projects. Clara Park would be the first property that will be enrolled in our reserve system to achieve both those objectives. We're still working on going through the conservation easement negotiations with them. I think it's just the interim management plan, and then that package will be submitted to the wildlife agencies, and hopefully they'll be okay with this, and then that can quickly happen. It would go to the county board for their approval and then come back to you for approval.
Park management's good people.
Yes. Then 4 additional properties.
The board is
I don't know about that
flaky.
board.
I wouldn't say anything else. Good. Even if Don wasn't here. Well, maybe I'd say other things if he wasn't here. So 4 additional properties are, 2 of them along Highway 152 and all 3 of the 4 of these would be conservation easement deals. So where the landowner would maintain ownership and we would just put our easement over it. Those are better deals for us a lot of times because it's a lot cheaper to do that. 2 are ranch properties and 1 is predominantly oak woodland. It has yellow-legged frog on it, which is important, near Anderson Dam, actually. So those are all in various stages of the acquisition process. We're either doing appraisals on them now or about to do appraisals.
Generally, what's the length of the easement?
In perpetuity, yeah. But we're starting to rethink that because of climate change. Should we do in perpetuity easements if the habitat is going to change drastically? I'm not worried necessarily about these properties, but owls up in the Baylands, for instance, that's something, if we're going to acquire land there for Bayland species or burrowing owl, one would have to wonder with sea level rise, do you do a forever easement on something like that? Yeah.
Okay.
But that's just an example. Central Valley, it's going to get a lot hotter. Let's say our plan was in the Central Valley and we put an easement over vernal pool land, and the vernal pools are all going to disappear. Yeah, yeah. I think we're less at risk here than some other parts of the state and the country, but we still have the issue to deal with. Fire, obviously, you know, that could really alter things tremendously.
If I might, Chair, ask a question. Regarding that, the perpetuity question, could we put a clause in saying that we could keep the land in conservancy through perpetuity unless the land is no longer viable?
Yes.
So that way,
Yes.
the option of having it in perpetuity is still there versus
Yes.
picking a time frame.
Yeah, we'd have to work out that language with the wildlife agencies, but I was part of a presentation on climate change in West Virginia, and this came up. It's one of the issues that came up about easements and land, and in some states like Florida, it's
The land would be
it's
there.
real tricky. It's real tricky.
I have
And-
another question, if I may. Going back to the question about the parks taking over, so refresh my memory, I can't remember. So when they take over, when we give it over to them, they then keep it in its same state, correct? I mean, I know that some years ago, Post was creating trails and whatever on some land that they took or bought or however they did it. But how do we have our arrangement when we give over land? Say 10 years from now,
Yep.
are they able to now start making trails and have people tromp through there, or what's the story?
Yeah, yes, no, it's a great question. Depends on the property. I would say in the case of Baird, we've made it clear to county parks and OSA that the Baird Ranch, the Davison property, no recreation.
Okay.
But the rest of Tilton is fine for recreation. And county parks may be a funder of that, OSA will be a funder. Though natural resources is an important part of their mission, so is public access and recreation. So in those instances, it's compatible. But in the case of a property like Baird and Davison, which is butterfly habitat,
Right.
the Ceanothus occurrence, which could be threatened by the pathogen Phytophthora, it's best to keep the people out. In the case of Pond Peck, there's already a road on the property that is perfect for a trail. And so, but yes, if county parks wanted to put a bunch of trails on the property, we would say no.
But is that like in the transaction when you create this?
Yeah. Pond Peck, I'm not worried about that one, but yeah, it would be defined in the conservation easement. Yeah, and since we're the ones buying the property, we would but trails are viewed as being compatible with the reserve system. Not in all instances. Like Clara, for instance, it's sensitive habitat. There are some trails, pre-existing trails that go through sensitive habitat, but county parks and OSA are cognizant of the importance of those properties, like Coyote Ridge.
Right.
And when our easement went over the Coyote Ridge property, the trails were defined and where they could go. And if OSA wanted to add additional trails through Serpentine, I think it would be an issue for us and the wildlife agencies. I'm not, at this point in time with the current leadership at both organizations, I'm not worried about that. But yes, in the future, my successor, different philosophy at county parks or OSA, there potentially could be some, conflict over where trails go. So far, there hasn't. Wildlife agencies approved the trail alignments for Rancho San Vicente, which is part of Calero, and that will be enrolled in the reserve system. So far, so good in working together on where trails go. But there are concerns on the part of the recreation providers and us, and because we saw presentations in West Virginia in San Diego, where they're loving those. They have several HCP and CCPs down there, and yes, there are problems with vandalism and bigger metropolitan area because they get people from LA coming down.
Sure.
18 million people living in LA. So it's and it came up in Vacaville at the Northern California conference. I wasn't there, but Jerry was there, and recreation was a whole focus of that conference. They had a whole talk on it.
I just remember that, the whole video this year sometime about the burrowing owls and how the chicks and how they're just left out in the open, and
Yes.
remember that, and it's the odds of them surviving are so, it seemed like 1 in 3 or something like that.
Yes, and going out with the burrowing owl scientists out to Tilton on Tuesday to try to scope out the property for areas where we could do owl conservation, like reintroduction, and try to identify that before OSA or county parks would take title to the property, and then we would try to avoid doing any recreation where we would be doing owl reintroduction in a burrow complex. So, yes, so when we're spending a lot of federal, state, and our own fee money on a property, it's a little different than where the county or OSA spend their money to buy it, yeah. And the good news is Post and Moore Foundation are pretty aligned with us on these issues. So when we're bringing a lot of funding to the table, OSA and county parks are very respectful that, okay, this is a property being bought for conservation. Recreation's important, but it's not the driving force.
Okay, thanks.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Are any of these properties also ranching lands? Do we have cattle grazing on any
What,
of?
sorry?
Are any of these land acquisitions are also part of ranching?
Yes,
lands?
yes. So we, Tilton, Alan Renz, yeah, she sold the, Janet Burbach and her husband sold their cows, but Alan Renz is currently grazing it, and we would continue to have him be the grazer. The two properties on 152 where we do a conservation easement, so they're both ranch land property, working landscape. Farmland isn't super compatible with what we do. If we were covering other species, maybe, like Swainson's hawk, but not so much for us. So we're usually not doing ag conservation. But ranch grazing and our is compatible with our reserve system, and we'd like to support the ranching community. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Any more questions?
No.
You want to finish up?
Yes. So maybe I'm right on 35 minutes now?
Stretch just a little, you're right there.
Okay.
You're right there.
One so far.
So unfortunately, it's not all good news. Tara Donovan has moved to San Diego, and you know Tara presents to you guys on the annual report
Right.
and
Yes.
other things. So she moved there with her boyfriend. She got a job with a consulting firm. She's working on the San Diego HCP. So they said bye to our fair county, but I wish her well in her new endeavors. We've started a recruitment process to find her replacement.
And that's online?
Yes, we have it on our webpage, and we're working with CPS HR, the same ones that hired me, for we get a broad distribution, and they'll handle at least the initial application review process and the background check stuff for us.
All right. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Future Implementation Board initiated agenda items. Anyone have anything they want to put on the future agenda? No? Please take note of the next 4 upcoming meetings, all next year.
Next year.
If you plan to be on this board. That said, I think we're adjourned. Everyone have, it's a little early. Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Still, it's early.
Yep, happy holidays to everybody.
Happy New Year.
Good job, everybody.
Thank you for the reports.
Thank you.